Hi, I'm Nick the CD Man, Nick S the CD Man, and this is my weekly Monday video of, excuse me, my glasses are not on, but this is the number one albums for the year of 1972 on the Billboard 200 albums chart. I apologize for the noise. My wife is watching TV, which she should rightfully do. Anyway, let's start up with it with 1972. January 1st was the first number one album of 1972, excuse me. And that was Carole King's follow-up to the number one album, Tapestry, the biggest album of 1971. At least by Grammy standards, it's the one album of the year, record of the year, etc. This album is called Music. It's right there. This is a pressing from, it doesn't say what year it's from. It's really the only pressing that's out. Could use a remaster or whatever you want to call it again. The single from it was Sweet Seasons, the lone single from the album, but other classic tracks included Brother, Brother, It's Going to Take Some Time, Some Kind of Wonderful, Carry Your Load, among others. January 22nd was the number one album that spent for 6 weeks at number one, and it was the only number one album for the great Don McLean from Westchester, New York. New Rochelle, New York to be exact. Don's album was called American Pie, and it featured the classic 8-minute number one smash, American Pie, and it held the record for the longest playing number one record of the rock era up until Taylor Swift last year with her 10-minute version of All Too Well. Don's album also featured the other single, a tribute to Vincent van Gogh called Vincent. And I must tell you, when my father passed away, my father was a sculptor, and when he passed away, that song was near and dear to my heart. Also on the album were songs like Till Tomorrow, Empty Chairs, and The Grave, which George Michael had a cover of that's floating around somewhere, not on an album, but floating around somewhere. March 11th was the number one album of 1972 via the Billboard 200 albums chart. Oh, give me a second for a minute. That Don McLean album was the 2003 pressing on Capitol Records. March 11th, getting back to that, was the number one album of the year on the Billboard 200, and it was the only number one album for the solo for the great Neil Young. Now, Neil had released 3 number one albums with Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young: Deja Vu, the live album Four-Way Street, and he would release a greatest hits album with them called So Far, but his only number one solo album was Harvest, and it featured two of his 3 top 40 records on the Billboard Hot 100. 1, The Great Heart of Gold, which went to all the way to number 1, and 2, Old Man, which made the top 40 the same year. The album also features classics such as A Man Needs a Maid and The Needle on the Damage Done. This is the pressing from Neil's archive series, original official release series, disc 4. And the year on this one was 2009. I actually bought this at Amobia Records in California, San Francisco to be exact. March 25th, 1972 was another album that featured a number one single. That single was A Horse with No Name. Excuse me, I've got a cough. The album was America's America. They also featured the single I Need You and the classic Sandman. This pressing is the only one I know about being released. Could use a remaster. Up next, on April 29th, was vocalist Roberta Flack. She had the number one single of the year on the Billboard Hot 100 called The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face, which was originally released in 1969 on this album, and brought to light by a Clint Eastwood movie, Play Misty for Me. The album surged again and went to number 1. This pressing looks like it's a German pressing, and it doesn't say the year. But I can confirm it is the digitally remastered version of First Take, Roberta Flack. Other great tracks in the album include Compared to What, Hey, That's No Way to Say Goodbye, and Ballad of the Sad Young Man. And the album was produced by the great Joel Dorn. Give me a second. Move this down. Give me a second. I'm almost there. Now I got it. Good. Perfect. Okay, June 3rd saw an album that set a record. It was one of 2 albums, both by the same act, to basically have one piece be the entire album. No individual tracks. One long piece on each side of the record. Their first record to do it was Thick as a Brick, British group Jethro Tull. As it was 2 long pieces, no singles charted in the top 40 on the Billboard Hot 100. Though Casey in 1972 did a countdown of the top albums for 1 week in August of 1972 and played a piece from Thick as a Brick. Good stuff if you're into classic rock. Coming out in the fall, later this fall, is another edition of Thick as a Brick. And the version I have currently is the 1997, which also features Thick as a Brick live at Madison Square Garden 1978, and an interview with Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson, Martin Barry, and Jeffrey Hammond. June 17th saw what most people regard as the top Rolling Stones album of all time, alongside Let It Bleed and Sticky Fingers. The Rolling Stones and Exile on Main Street. The pressing I have is from 2010 when they did the remaster campaign for this album, and there were 2 singles that made the top 40, the top 10 Tumbling Dice, which made Casey Kasem's American Top 40 year-end survey, and a track called Happy with the vocals of Keith Richards. We go to July 15th, and the #1 album was the first #1 album by the great Captain Fantastic himself, Elton John and Honky Chateau. The album featured 2 top 40 singles, Honky Cat and The Great Rocket Man, I Think It's Going to Be a Long, Long Time, and classic tracks like I Think I'm Going to Kill Myself, Mona Lisa and Mad Hatters, and the track played on American Top 40, that album countdown, Slave. This version is from 1995, and the bonus track is Slave in an alternative version. August 19th saw Chicago hit #1 for the first time with an album called Chicago 5. There it is right there. The pressing I have is from 2002, and the singles from the album are Saturday in the Park and Dialogue, which is broken up on the original album into Dialogue Part 1 and Dialogue Part 2, though the single version, Dialogues Parts 1 and 2, is featured as a bonus track, along with the song for Richard and his friends, the studio version without vocals, and Mississippi Delta City Blues, first recorded version with scratch vocal. Give me a second. We'll get to the last part. Give me a second. Hold on. We are there. We got it. October 21st. Saw the only soundtrack to go to #1 in 1972. The soundtrack to the blaxploitation movie starring Ron O'Neal called Superfly. And it was done by the great soul artist Curtis Mayfield. There you go. If you really like this album and you're into vinyl, a new vinyl release of this has been recently released. The version I have on CD is from 1999 and features 2 bonus tracks. Single mixes of both the 2 singles, Freddy's Dead, Theme of Superfly, and Superfly, both of which were popping on and being #1s. Other classics include Little Child Running Wild and The Great Pusher Man. November 19th saw the only #1 album for Cat Stevens, and surprisingly, it's not Teaser and the Fire Cat or the other one, which I life of me, I can't remember the name of it again. It is 7th Sojourn. The album only had 1 top 40 single, Sitting, and a classic track in The Boy with the Moon and Star on His Head. Again, it was produced by Paul Samuel Smith, and the version that I have is from 2000. And the last #1 album of 1972 was on December 9th, and it was the first of 2 #1 albums for the Great Moody Blues. And no, it was not Days of Future Past, which went to #2, I believe. It was 7th Sojourn. 7th Sojourn, the version I have is from 2008, and I bought it at Rhino Records in New Paltz, New York. I found the copy there. Actually, I did not buy it at Rhino Records in New Paltz, New York. I bought the other one at Rhino Records in New Paltz, New York. Excuse me. Anyway, I did buy this one as a reissue because it does have bonus tracks. An original version of Isn't Life Strange, a Beckthorn's backing track of You and Me, an instrumental demo of Lost in a Lost World, and Island. 3 singles were released from the album. 2 top 40s, I'm Just a Singer in a Rock and Roll Band, and Isn't Life Strange, and a charting single, Lost in a Lost World. And the version I have is from 2006. Actually, 2008, excuse me. There you have it. The 12 or 13 #1 albums of 1972. We had Music by Carole King, American Pie by Don McLean, Harvest by Neil Young, America by America, First Take by Roberta Flack, Thick as a Brick by Jethro Tull, Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones, Honky Chateau by Elton John, Chicago 5 by Chicago, Superfly by Curtis Mayfield, Catch Bullet 4 by Cat Stevens, and finally 7th Sojourn, and rounded out the year by the Moody Blues. Hope you enjoyed the video. Tune in next week for 1973, excuse me. I'm Nick the CD Man. Nick S. the CD Man. This is the CD Man channel. Signing off, saying if you like this video, subscribe, hit the like button, hit the dingy to get notified, and keep rocking and listening to your music and listening to your physical media. I'm Nick S. Have a great day and see you soon.